Before the stars, before the planets, before life found its way to breathe, the universe had to acquire something we take for granted today. In the previous episodes, we witnessed chaos, the primordial chasm, the silence before the music, the quantum vacuum waiting to give birth. And we saw Anangi, the unstoppable law, the spindle spinning the destiny of even the gods, setting boundaries to the infinite potential. But neither the opening nor the law are enough for a cosmos to exist. Something even more fundamental is required: foundation. Without foundation, existence is an equation without even a paper to write it on. An idea without a mind to execute it. So the ancient Greeks did not see the world as a random explosion, but as a gradual acquisition of mind, consciousness, and body. And they called the foundation Gaia. When we talk about Gaia, we're talking about the material side of the world. But don't think of the planet we walk upon. Those came much later. In the beginning, Gaia was materiality itself. If chaos is the opening, the void that waits, and then Eros is the urge that pushes everything to unite, then Gaia is the place where this union takes hold. It is the moment where the nothing gains weight. As we saw in Hesiod, the chaos episode, he says that first chaos came to be. First the opening, and immediately after, Gaia, the Evristernos. She with a white chest. Why white chest? Because Gaia is the vessel who receives all the forms upon her. The primordial triad, the geometry of existence. Imagine three pillars. In the Orphic tradition, they say that everything began from the cosmic egg, an egg that shattered. And of course, it's symbolic. What emerged? Not birds, not gods in human form. What emerged was a structure. In the Orphic tradition, as well as in Hesiod, creation is not a straight line. It is a framework. Chaos gives us space and the field of possibilities. Gaia gives us form, and Eros gives us the force, the energy that makes things relate. So we have space, form, and force. This is the holy trinity of physics, thousands of years before physics existed, like the science physics. Without Gaia, Eros would have been a nothing. Eros would have nowhere to rest. He would be an energy that is totally lost in the infinite. So Gaia is the vessel. She is the guarantee that the world will not dissolve back into chaos. She is the stability that allows the universe to have a memory. Because matter, in its essence, it is memory. It is energy that decided to slow down, stop running, to become something. Now, we must see something else here. In ancient thought, Gaia symbolizes the potentiality of the form. She is the dense. Just as chaos is not merely a vacuum but an opening full of possibilities, Gaia is not merely soil, she is the principle of realization, of embodiment. It is the very moment when energy condenses. If we translate this into the language of modern physics, chaos is the quantum vacuum, Anangi represents the physical constants, and Gaia is the emergence of the first particles, the emergence of mass. But together with all of this, we have the emergence of consciousness as well. The Parthenogenesis of matter, the miracle of self-organization. Hesiod tells us something shocking, something very, very modern if you truly contemplate it. There's a secret here within the Theogony. Gaia gives birth alone, without mating, without external intervention. She gives birth to Ouranos, the sky, the mountains, and Pontus, the sea. What is the poet telling us here? This is immense symbolically. It means that matter is not dead. It is not waiting for a craftsman to mold it. It doesn't need an external creator to acquire existence and structure. The very nature of matter leads to form, and this is connected to consciousness too. In modern physics, we would say that Gaia is the very emergence of mass. She carries within her a private internal intelligence. Today, we call it self-organization. Particles unite into atoms, atoms into molecules, molecules into galaxies. Before we speak of the solid earth, we must speak of the flow. For Heraclitus, Gaia is not a static end, but a phase in the eternal journey of fire. It is worth including this fragment by Heraclitus. Fire turns first into sea, and half of the sea becomes earth, and the other half a whirlwind. Heraclitus means that by its power, fire, under the influence of the divine logos that governs all things, is transformed through the air into moisture, the core of the entire arrangement of the universe, which he calls sea. From this, the earth, the heavens, and all they contain are reborn. As for how the world is led back and consumed by fire, he explains it clearly. The earth dissolves into sea and reaches the same measure of proportion that existed before it became earth. Under the influence of the divine logos, fire does not vanish, it transforms, it becomes moisture, then sea, and finally crystallizes into Gaia. This is a self-organization that occurs in measures. There is a mathematical precision, a cosmic ratio that maintains balance as matter dissolves and is reborn from its fiery core. And here we have the answer to every materialistic dogma. This cosmos, the same for all, no god, no man has made, but it always was and is and shall be an ever-living fire, kindling in measures and extinguishing in measures. If the cosmos is an ever-living fire, then Gaia is the living body of that fire. It requires no external craftsman, because intelligence is woven into the very fabric of matter. And for those who insist on seeing only the light of the senses, about the light you can hide from, Heraclitus leaves us with a piercing thought. How can one hide from that which never sets? You can escape the sun by hiding in a cave, but from the noetic light, from the logos that organizes your cells and the galaxies alike, there's no hiding. This light never sets. It is the software of existence, the unseen fire burning within within the night and within you. There are no two different codes. There isn't one law for the stars and another for your thought and your consciousness. The logos that organizes fire into sea and sea into is the very same logos that organizes perception into meaning and emotion into awareness. When Heraclitus speaks of the fire that kindles in measures and extinguishes in measures, he is not just describing a cosmic blaze, he is describing the dynamics of the soul. Our soul is a vapor, a fiery flow that grows heavy and falls into Genesis when moistened and becomes wise and radiant when dry. Heraclitus in other places speaks of the gods. On one hand, he speaks of the eternal fire and that no god created, and on the other, he speaks of Apollo and Artemis. How is this possible? Does he contradict himself? Not at all. He knows exactly what he is saying. We simply labeled him the dark philosopher because we failed to understand him. Why then is it impossible to hide from that which never sets? Because the light is not outside of you. It is the very mechanism through which you see. It is the architecture of your own mind. The self-organization of and the self-organization of your thought are the same symphony played on different scales. We have separated biology from psychology and physics from philosophy. But the Greeks saw a unified living totality. They understood that if you want to learn how a galaxy works, you must observe how an idea is born within you. And if you want to understand your soul, you must study how weaves her body from the fire. We are not observers of the universe. We are the point where the universe gains consciousness of itself using the exact same laws that keep the planets in their orbits. And the Greek pantheon is not a collection of fairy tales. On the contrary, it is the most real thing in existence. It is the entire nature of reality and human consciousness encoded in a 360-degree cycle. We simply struggle to understand it. The gods are the very laws that govern reality. Deviate from them, and you will be led to decay and destruction. Understand these laws, and you will be led to eudaimonia and growth. As one of our poets in Greece, Odysseus Elitis, said, at its core, the material world is simply a heap of materials. The final result will depend on whether we are good or bad architects. It depends on the heaven or the hell that we build. This separation, the removal of the divine from the body of creation, is the most critical turning point in the history of human consciousness. It is the moment the cosmos ceased to be ensouled and became an object. When God was placed outside of creation, lost her sanctity. And there is an irony here. We have the concept of ex nihilo, out of nothing. This was originally an axiom formulated by Parmenides, who stated ουδέν εξ ενός, ex nihilo nihil fit. Nothing comes from nothing. Parmenides' point was that the world is created from itself without the need for an external cause. It alternates and transforms, yet its primordial essence remains eternal and undissolved. However, in later years, with the rise of monotheism, this phrase was cut in half. They kept only the ex nihilo to argue that a god created the world out of a void. But in Greek thought, the divine emerges through nature. Gaia gives birth to the gods. In monotheism, God constructs the world like a craftsman making a piece of furniture. And the result was that matter became something inferior, unclean, or fallen. And humanity stopped seeing nature as the very body of God and the divine and began to view it as a mere tool that it is provided for dominion. And this was the very first step of our alienation. The moment God is outside the world is left orphaned of spirit. And this led us to the Enlightenment and to Newton, where the universe was described as a vast clock. If God is the watchmaker who simply turns the clock around and then is gone, then nature is nothing but gears and mechanisms. Matter became dead without Eros, without Nyx, without ether, without all of the necessary ingredients to vitalize it from within. And so Gaia was transformed into a mere pile of raw materials. And this is not what elitist means. Then we have atheism. Atheism was not born out of hatred for the divine, but from its absence. If God is so distant, so external, and so abstract, he eventually becomes redundant. Because science claimed that, hold on a second, I can explain how the gears of the clock work without needing the watchmaker. So humanity discarded God, but kept the dead nature. And we ended up in a world without meaning, where existence is seen as a random biological accident. So this separation was the greatest wound of humanity. We kicked out the sacred out of the world, we became sinners, and we ended up living on a dead planet. Atheism and materialism are the children of a God who became external. So to bridge this gap, we must return to the deep understanding of Logos. The word Logos was abducted by Christianity to be rendered simply as the word of God. But Logos signifies much more. It is emanation, emergence, proportion, it is mathematics, physics, motion, and music. It is the symphony and the discord, the movement from the one to the many, and from the many back to the one. Logos as speech or word does not belong to a god. It belongs to the human being. It is through Logos that the human being strives to understand both themselves and the world, seeking to live in harmony within a divine creation. We must realize that the divine is not a craftsman standing over the world, but the very self-organization of the world itself. The sacred is not elsewhere. It is the very invisible harmony that Heraclitus is talking about. So Gaia contains within her the necessity of Anangi and the urge of Eros. She does not wait for orders. She's living materiality. Gaia is the very principle of complexity. She is the proof that the very nature of reality, what we call Physis, is to create structures from nothing. I will share a passage from Nikos Koundourakis' work, Reality, the Structure of Thought. This book is nearly 1,000 pages, is unfortunately available only in Greek, but Its insights into the Hellenic perception of existence are absolutely fantastic. I will translate and read a significant excerpt for you. It is important to note that, as I have mentioned before, that when Plato refers to the all-begetting mind, the pangenitor nous, he is not speaking of the monotheistic God. Physis, definition, genesis with the admixture of the liquid element. Etymology, derived from the verb theo, to give birth, to develop, to sprout, to come into light. Essence, interpretation. The word theo is divided into the letter phi, which is the symbol of the golden ratio of beauty, 1.618, of balance and virtue, and io, which means to moisten, to rain, which indicates the descent of the liquid element. From theo also derive the words physas, be careful here, which means father, and phys, which means son, and by extension, gender, philo, and tribe, phili. The music of the world of ideas is transmuted into nature with a small percentage of deduction or decline. This decline provides the parameter of decay, which leads to the closing of the cycle of a life. Kundourakis continues, analyzing how this decay is connected with our intellectual journey and the true death of the soul, but let's not go there for now. Let's remain with this image. Gaia is not a random object. She is the music of ideas that took form through the liquid element and the golden mathematical imprint of phi. She is a living geometry that, despite her decay, remains the only objectively real thing we can touch. She functions exactly like Ariadne's thread, the sacred cord that leads you out of the labyrinth of irrationality and back to the source of light. The universe cools down, then we have energy that condenses, particles that gain substance. What the ancients would probably call firm foundation, we call it the Higgs field or material manifestation. It is the body of reality. Just as our body is the place where our soul and our mind experiences the world, so Gaia is the body where the all-generating mind, the pangenitor nous, manifests its creation. So matter is pregnant with itself, and she gives birth to Ouranos, her opposite, the sky, so that a dialogue may begin. The dense and the subtle, below and above. Ouranos and Gaia, the conflict with the sky, the very space of existence. Then we have Ouranos appearing. Do not imagine Ouranos as an old man with beard in the clouds. Ouranos is the above, the subtle, the ethereal, the immaterial. In the beginning, the myth tells us that Ouranos and Gaia were one. They were glued together. Gaia does not remain alone. From her own self, Ouranos is born. Ison eoiti, Hesiod says, equal to herself. So he's not a foreign god. He does not come from elsewhere. He is Gaia's other face. And Ouranos is tangent to Gaia. There is no air between them yet, no space for life, no ground for us to walk upon. So if Gaia is solidity, substance, depth, and fertility, Ouranos is vastness, the immaterial dimension, luminosity, and containment. Gaia is the body, Ouranos is the vault that surrounds it. Ouranos, closer to infinity, was suffocating Gaia, the matter. So Ouranos would not let at that point their children emerge into the light. Their children, the Titans, who are the first raw primal cosmic forces, remained hidden within her. Why? Because the infinite takes some time to create limitation. Like we have a pure idea, but then it takes some time for the idea to become an act. For this, it took the intervention of what? Of Kronos to separate them. And here we must pause for a second, because many distort Kronos. Some make him a boogeyman who devours children, others deify him as the only true god. Both are wrong. Kronos is the part of the process. He's the son of Ouranos and Gaia, the husband of Rhea, and the father of Zeus. His era was the Golden Age because it represents the first intellectual order of the world. And this is again a matter of anagi, necessity. Necessity dictates the separation. Remember what we said about time and necessity. Time is the flow within the opening of chaos. And through its action, it creates the space between. The castration of Ouranos is not a violent story for children. It is a cosmological slit. It is the moment for the very space between to exist. It is the point where it is created. And this is the symbolic separation of heaven and earth. And this creates the place we live. We live exactly between the dense and the sparse. And only when Ouranos moves away from Gaia does the world as we know it appear. And then what do we have? We have the space between the above and the below. It is the stage where the whole human story will be played, or shall I say drama. Without this separation, Gaia would be a pregnant woman never allowed to give any birth between body and spirit. And without this separation, the universe would just be a shapeless soup. Ouranos is not merely the father of the gods. Ouranos is the rhythm of the stars, the cycle of time, the cosmic order, what gives measure, and the field of intelligible reality. In Greek thought, the sky is not empty, it is full, it is alive. Chthonic wisdom, the depth of being. So we have forgotten Gaia. We turned Gaia into a resource when modern man sees Earth as a commodity to be exploited. We turned her into a real estate, and we also pay taxes for it. But the ancients knew. Before Apollo took Delphi, the oracle belonged to Gaia. What does that signify? That wisdom is not found in the stars. It is found in the depths, into the very chthonic experience. Wisdom is something that requires experience. We're talking about embodied wisdom. Gaia is the Pamitor, the mother of all, she who gives everything, Pandotira, and she who brings everything to its fulfillment and end. Telesphoros is the word. And this word has to do with Aristotle's entelechi that we will talk about in the next episode about Nyx. Gaia is a dual force. She gives birth to the gods, but she also gives birth to the typhoons. So she generates beauty, but also the erinias, the remorses that rise from violence on earth. So what happens here? Nature is not good in a moral sense. It possesses no human ethics. It possesses cosmic creativity. And creation demands destruction too. A musician needs to keep destroying to be able to start creating. Same as an architect, same as with anything creative. So Gaia nourishes her children and in the end receives them back into her embrace. It is the cycle that never breaks. Man as a terrestrial and celestial being. Remember what we discussed in the previous episodes. We saw chaos as the quantum vacuum, the vast silence holding every possible sound, every possible movement. We saw Anangi as the universal constraints, the mathematical lines that are defining the very motion of where can ends and where must begins. And now Gaia arrives to answer the question, when do possibilities become reality? In modern science, Gaia is not just our planet. She is the Higgs field. She is the invisible mother of the universe that grants particles their mass. Without this density, the world would be an eternal radiation that could never be caught into a shape. So Gaia, in a way, is the collapse of the wave function. She's the moment when the engine of necessity comes and catches the energy of chaos and forces it to become body. So if chaos is the infinite and the Ananki is the measure, Gaia is the crystallization, is the crystal formatting between them. She's the proof that the universe did not only want to think or to legislate, but wanted to exist. And every cell of our body is a piece of Gaia. We are all made of stardust, yes, but the dust took shape here in the very body of reality, the underlayer that allows then ideas to become things. Today we are totally alienated. We think that Earth is something outside of us. We are totally wrong. We are Gaia herself, having acquired eyes to gaze upon Ouranos. Before civilizations, before religions, before our ego, there was the foundation. And when all the works of men turn to dust, no matter what they think, Gaia will still be here, not as a planet, but as the eternal potentiality of being. Language as cosmogony. Gaia from go, to contain, hold, or ea, space, land, and ra, which means surface, land again. Gaia is the containment. She's the capacity itself that allows the universe to host forms. Without Wo, chaos would have no place to manifest. Yea from Yeo, to rejoice, to glow. From the root meaning to shine, to radiate. Matter is not darkness, it is the bursting of existence, the exultation of form. Ouranos from Uro, which means to guard. Ouranos is the Ouros, the guardian, he who encompasses and protects the boundaries of Yea, preventing anarchic expansion, but also Ouranos, the celestial vault, the firmament, the dwelling of gods. Orota Ano, seeing the above. Kronos, Koros plus Nous, the pure mind. Kreno, completing. Kronos, son of Ouranos and Yea, husband of Rhea, father of Zeus and other gods and goddesses. He is the power of judgment that imposes the separation, which is the castration of infinite unity, so that the multiplicity of beings may finally be born. He is the giver of the beginning of mental life, the one who establishes judgment and differentiates form during the Golden Age. He is not an enemy of Zeus, not any of this. He is the very part of the cosmic process. Pontus, to labor, to traverse, and is also the pathway, the sea route, or cosmologically, the intersections of energy, the point of connection, the liquid element connected to the movement of pnoi, of breath and flow, and the struggle of life to cross the distance. Oros, from Orion, which means boundaries, and it means the mountain, but simultaneously the limit, the point, the rule, the measure that defines the land, the limits of materiality. So, the elevation of matter that sets rules and borders upon the very landscape of existence. Nyx. We have seen Yea giving us form, the solid foundation upon which we stand, yet existence is not exhausted by what we perceive in what we call light. Beneath the surface of matter, there lies an invisible depth. So in the next episode, we will extinguish the lights of the senses to see more clearly, and we will speak of Nyx. We will not speak of the darkness that frightens us, but of Nyx, the very womb of cosmic powers. And we will discover how, from this primordial depth, sleep, death, dreams, and the fates are born. We will view Nyx as the software of the soul and the cosmos, the place where Yea's matter, Yea's materiality meets what? Meets invisible destiny. Night is the level of information in the unconscious. If Yea is the hardware, night is the operating system running beneath it. So in our mythology, Nyx is the one that gives birth to Philotis. Together with all the scary shadows of the night, we have Philotis appearing. And Philotis is basically preparing the ground for the universal power of Eros that will follow and start connecting everything together. Because to understand the light that will follow, we must first learn to read the shadows of the night.